Today, I'm joined by Sneha Susan Jacob, who goes by Susan. She's an ASHA certified SLP with 20 plus years of experience and who has worked in a wide variety of settings and discovered her passion in early intervention. She is also now a CEO of her company, Italk Inc., serving early intervention services in Solano County, California. She has her family, which includes her husband and three kids. Susan, thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me and happy Speech and Hearing Month.
Yeah, I think it's actually speech and hearing day as well. Oh, maybe that's tomorrow. Okay, so we're close to it at the time of
Yes.
this interview.
Yeah, very excited to be a part of this.
Yeah. So do you feel like that covers everything, or is there anything else you want to add before we dive into your experience with early intervention?
Yeah, I'm Hanan certified, and that's
Okay.
my specialty. Like doing it, I've done it for both. I loved it so much that I've done it for like It Takes Two to Talk and also More Than Words. Yeah.
Amazing. I've heard
Mhm.
really good things about that
Yeah,
program.
especially for early intervention. It's just amazing.
That's great. So can you describe your journey as a speech language pathologist?
So it is an interesting journey because I did my graduation bachelor's and master's degree in speech language pathology and audiology in India. And after that, I started my career life lecturing on the same college from where I graduated. And then there was a big shift in my journey because I came to the United States for the first time in my life, and that too, right in the Manhattan, in the New York City, where it was like a totally different world. And then I started with early intervention in New York City, and then and that's where I got my CF and license and everything. And then I moved all the way to the West Coast. Again, it was like a total cultural shift. And then I did preschool and I moved up the age continuum. I did the preschool, elementary school, middle school, a little bit of high school. And alongside, I was doing early intervention as part time. And then I started working with the geriatric population and skilled nursing facilities. So then I tried my administrative position because I served as a director of rehab in a few of the skilled nursing facilities. And alongside all these years, I started like in between. I think once finished with the schools, I started supervising other RP, CFs, and slippers. Yeah, and then I realized, okay, my passion is into early intervention, so I completely devoted my time doing early intervention. Because along with this, my family was also growing. When I started, I was single. Then I got married, and I had three children. So I started like with the flexibility. I did early intervention, and then at this time this year, I started my own company, iTalk Inc., and I have few other passionate speech therapists working for me. So that's my journey.
Awesome. Congratulations. And thank you for sharing your path, your winding path to
Yes, it
right now.
was
You wouldn't know that you didn't like those other areas as much as early intervention had you not tried them. So I love
right.
whenever SLPs branch out, try new things. And we're lucky in our field that we can do that.
Yes, it's very diverse, like each
Yeah.
one in each setting. So yes, I just found my passion and I just enjoy every bit of it.
That's amazing. So, what has been your favorite job as an SLP?
First, early intervention. I love that. First of all, I love that age where they're so adorable. And it is also that critical time where we can actually make a huge impact. And also, the parents are also very much like hopeful for that to bring the best out of them. And I mean, that's coming from the skilled nursing to this, I think that was just the opposite. Feels like where everything is like kind of flat and you're expecting that decline. But over here, it's just the opposite. Okay, we just want to, it's like planting a seed and then waiting for that seedling to grow and grow it down to a full tree. So I just love that. And I think each day when like we get a response from the child, I'm so excited and it just gives me energy and so much of joy for the entire day. So working as a team, like coaching the parents, and it just feels so good. I love when we go for work, I just love going to work because it's all on intervention.
Well, I can definitely see that. I can see your passion as you're talking about it. And I think anybody that's worked in that role can
Uh-huh.
tell you they feel the same way. It's just so rewarding when you're able to help a family and then help a child to start to communicate their needs and like with the people around them.
Right, right. And also as a work-life balance too, I think that has helped me because going into their homes and then like modifying it, just working with their in their natural environment, it also gives you the flexibility. So being a mom of three kids and then to just have that work-life balance, I find it like so much easier and at the same time very much fruitful.
That's amazing.
Mm.
This is like a personal question, but how far are you driving to see some of your clients? Are they all pretty close or is it like a big geographical area?
No, I have restricted myself to like immediate environment
Yeah.
because when you get these phone calls from the school, I have to be present because there was one time where like I was in a like a remote area and my cell phone reception wasn't there. So they
Mhm.
called and my child had fallen down. So there was and my husband was working like an hour away at that point of time. So there was nobody to help. So from that time when I got this when I was actually doing working independently, I just made myself available. But I do have other therapists working certain areas, so we're able to expand and serve the clients in different areas.
Okay. Are you contracted with like an early intervention agency, insurance,
So I'm
business?
actually working I with North Bay Regional Center. So I used to work as an independent contractor, and now I've bridged like my company works for.
Oh,
So yeah.
that's exciting. Yeah, because I know you just
Yes.
started it and you have people working for you. So I was kind of
Yes,
wondering,
from the first month itself. That's, like,
really?
is yes. Because I mean, not that like it wasn't something that I really, I mean, I was happy with my independent contractor thing and I got my, because it's the same thing. So I didn't think about like growing into a private practice or anything like that. When my friends used to suggest, I'm like, I'm happy, I'm content. That was my thing. But then like one of my uncle had mentioned that maybe because like you have that potential and maybe through you other people can be served. Somehow it stuck me. And there was I feel like the universe attracts that because the regional center wanted to promote bilingual services and they had an interview. And I submitted the research proposal and I didn't think that I would actually get it. But after the interview I got selected and they were like giving a grant to promote this. And once I got it, in order to hire it, I have to register. The first step was to register as a company. So that's how I ended up being there. And I didn't think that I would have any therapists because it's a single person. We don't have like a big history. It's just brand new. But it just attracted like my first employer was one of person that whom I have supervised years ago. But she
Mhm.
was like, it just happened. So it's just happy to see how things works towards a positive thing. And they're all amazing, passionate. Because that's what I want. It's not like a typical recruiting company or something, which I came through, so I know how it is. So this is, I want to serve clients, and then it's just about like passionate SLP, so we can reach out. And like what that person said, it just really struck me. Yes, there was a purpose, and I'm able to serve a lot more clients just because of this company. So I'm very happy and proud of myself, like to be at this position now.
Yeah, as you should be. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, can you describe some of the interesting cultural things that you've encountered in your practice?
When I first moved in, which was like about I think like 18 or well, almost like 20 years ago when I first came to the country, I kind of like felt that the way that an SLP is treated that pretty much depends upon like the socioeconomic status of the families and the areas too. Because there were like some families are like really good. They take notes on each and everything, and I have like post-its on the refrigerator. It's like a reminders to practice the speech strategies that we gave coach the parents. But there are some other families like where they treat you as like a babysitter. They'll just go do it. So that was kind of like shocking for me at the beginning. I'm like because I wasn't used to that. Like so, that was one thing. And then some of those interesting factors are like the culture, the TV shows, everything was like different. And I didn't know at that point of time anything because now that I have kids, I grew with it. I know like what kids will watch and things like that. So one of these families when I was doing an early intervention in New York City, and they were all talking about George. And I'm like, who this George is? I don't see anybody here. And I would not never thought that George would end up being a monkey. So it was Curious George that we're talking about. It was like so much important in that family. But so that was like, I would like total shock. And then in another family, it was Thomas. To realize that it's a train. So then moving on to West Coast, instance that I had in my list, like a client named, so it's calling out to the classroom and it's like, where's Jesus? So the teacher's like looking puzzled because Jesus is not responding. And then she's like, oh, Jesus. I'm like, oh, okay. God. So these are the things that were like totally new because I would have never thought anything like that can be pronounced that way,
Right.
especially San Jose and all these places, right? With the influence. Yes. So
Yeah.
some of them, like, are like we laugh, and I think about it, I laugh about it now, but at that point of time, it's like, okay, yeah. So it was interesting.
Well, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Like, thank you for being honest because I know everybody listening to this can relate in some form or another. I imagine if I were to go provide therapy services in India, there would be a huge curve of learning like the different cultural
Right.
backgrounds and customs.
Yes.
So I appreciate you sharing that story. That
Yeah.
those are cute.
Yeah.
What other challenges did you encounter when you first started your journey as an SLP?
And especially like bringing completely brought up in a different country and different language, everything. The first thing itself was like, I felt like I came to a new planet because there's like nobody to support. And that those days, smartphones were not out too. So the first time there was somebody to pick me up from the airport. And so you don't know, you haven't really seen how this city looks like. Now, if you have to go anywhere, you can look all these different routes to get there and you can decide which one to take. But at that point of time, whatever it was still like the paper written notes and things. And I had a welcome package. There was somebody who picked me up from the airport. And I just had a welcome package. And in that, they gave the directions as to how to get to the office. So that was my first experience. I read through all that, woke up in the morning, and then like even going to like taking because New York City, I didn't drive. So it was all like transportation. And even the subway was like for us, like a train station would be like a big landmark where people would, there would be like lots of cars and things like that. But New York City, I never thought that it's something underground. So getting into a train and going to the office, everything was like really challenging. And the culture, food. So there was like so much for me to adapt myself into. And accent, of course, was like a huge thing because, well, like kind of like followed through so much onto the British accent and then coming, and which was different from New York to California too. So, I mean, I had a client actually teaching me to say his name. His name was like Timothy. And in like India, we didn't have the like the TH is more like a dental stop, was a fricative here. So those things. So it was like a real learning experience. So I'm like, I've surpassed all that. And now, especially for our field, all those things matter. But California is like a little multicultural. And I think I've adapted myself because after that, being successful in treating all my clients, and I love them. And I think my clients love me as well.
Well, what's not to love? You're very friendly and very
Mhm.
positive. So I think working in early intervention is definitely your calling.
Yeah.
Can you describe your therapy approach or what's your advice to parents to promote speech and language with toddlers?
I'm an evidence-based neuro-divergent affirming therapist, and I focuses on the total child and even total communication, and also follow a strength-based approach for therapy. So, like I mentioned before, I'm HANET certified, and both It Takes Two to Talk and the More Than Words program. So I use that a lot. I tell the families like can make any change. It's just not. So we work as a team. So I make it clear that I want their participation, and my focus is actually more towards the parents versus the child because it's a child-led program. And then like, okay, this and I to frankly tell them like you and I learn to talk because nobody taught us how to talk. It's a learned behavior. So our job as a speech language pathologist, like it's how I'm teaching you how to create opportunities for them to communicate with their child. So they are open to that. They are like very much. So it's and Also, I just work on like environment modifications too, because a lot, especially post pandemic, one thing is that the influence of the technology, and some parents are young, so they don't know like, and it's like you're like taking care of a child by providing everything. So I feel like there's no need for a child to communicate. So pointing it out, all those things. And once they try to tweak it a little bit, the results are like huge. The kids do respond and communicate back, and then the parents are thrilled about it. So it's a like a whole total like a team. I work with the families, and I also have like an like open dialogue with families with respecting their culture, their background, because each one is different, right? So with that, yeah, it's quite amazing.
I'm glad you brought that up. I actually just had an early intervention session yesterday in one of my clients' homes. And being a parent now, I have a 3.5-year-old. I feel like in the past, before I had children, I had no problem. I don't know why this is, like, giving advice, giving my recommendations, but I had no children of my own, and I was
Yeah.
so confident at the time. And now that I have a child, when I give recommendations, I'm like, there's a grandmother here who has likely raised children to be thriving adults. Who am I to tell her, like, how to speak to her granddaughter? It's just a different perspective now, so I definitely approach it with more caution
Right.
and like trying to build that rapport and respect and trust with the family versus just spouting out my recommendations from they're great recommendations, they're evidence-based, but you have to take all of those things into consideration, like culture. For instance, we were talking, the parents have been mentioning that the child has been having or tantrums when they tell her no. She was like exhibiting some self-injurious behavior. Never did it with me in the clinic. So I was like, well, let's do the therapy in your home and
Uh-huh.
see what's going on. Of course, she really didn't do it at all with me either, but there were a couple of opportunities that I caught. One of them, the child was starting to draw on the window and mom right away was like, "Don't do that." And I subsequently, as she was saying that, I was like, "Oh, let's use the crayon to draw on paper." So then I explained, like, try to avoid saying no and don't as
Right.
much as possible, but like use descriptive language instead.
Sure.
And she was like a light bulb went off. And then she told her mom in Spanish. And I was just like, this mom is totally functioning and successful. The grandmother did a great job raising her. I'm sure she said don't and no a lot. So it's just interesting going into, and maybe like it depends on the child too. Like, how do they respond to no and don't? Like, for example, versus maybe the mom, it didn't really bother her when her grandmother used those terms, right?
Right, right, yeah, definitely. And like even within this household, like does make a huge difference when you have your own kids versus like you being a therapist before that. Is
Yeah.
even like in my family situation, it's just me and my husband raising kids. So like it's just two of us, and then I think I do a lot of coaching to my husband more than anybody else. And we've been successful. I was able to not to, especially with the first one, when you have that no technology, no TV for the first 2 years, and all my three kids are amazing readers. So I'm able to see that perspective, like what happens when a screen is put up, when the TV is on. My kids are not hungry. They don't use the restroom. They're all like glued to that. And I can see their like eye movements too, how much they're onto that. They're in a different world. So I'm able to explain that, from a parent perspective, I'm like, able to explain that to the families. So most of them are nuclear families, and with their parents on board, I think my job is so much easier once we get that. Once they implement it, they see themselves with that example of instead of using the no and redirecting your phrases. And the one common thing is say this, say that,
Yes, for asking
Yes,
questions.
yes, yeah. No
Yeah.
space there, right? Yeah. So it's so like, and then they try to catch themselves because that's they so used to that. And if they're all like multi-generational families living together, I've had some of the families, 'cause I make it clear first time itself, we work as a team.
Mhm.
Whatever we implement, it has to be consistent. It has to be even with siblings. So if when siblings are there, demonstrate. I love to play with them because that's a they interact so much that I'm like, okay, try to rephrase. And it's so much easier to model and change the siblings versus the parents. I think they're so used to that.
True.
Really,
Yeah.
yeah. And I've some families have had them talk to me specifically to the grandparents because maybe the grandparents' way is different, especially with different cultures.
Mhm.
So it's different. I feel like each family, it's like a different chapter of a big book. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
you're, like, doing family counseling, and you're
Mhm.
navigating all of these dynamic relationships. You're not just
Right,
working with the child,
right, right,
but
right.
you can
Yeah.
make such an impact when you're working with them early on.
Yes, yes. And with post pandemics, especially like in this California, we have like a lot of families where both the parents are working in the IT field
Mhm.
and they have the kids, they're all constant meetings, and it's like swapping between meetings to take care of the kids. So I've seen where families like no greeting, nothing. It's just based on like in the thing. And then
Yeah.
I kind of like feel freedom there. There's no because he's actually in a meeting that it's not his fault, but then dad was came in and then he was in the middle of the meeting that I don't think that he realized or he's so much focused that there wasn't that meeting happening there. So mom's like, well, my child doesn't get excited, seeing them. That's how they should be, right? I'm like, yeah, but your child is not model all that. She doesn't see that these are because you don't do it. So I think work
There's, like, these
pressure.
little things, right? Like, you can barely
Yes.
if you can't even really study that because every family is so different and their
Right.
situation is so different. So to put
Right.
that into a controlled study and say,
Mhm.
"Oh, the pandemic caused like this
Right.
specifically," is probably so hard to look at, but that's like common sense when you're looking at an interaction like that. As a
Uh-huh.
therapist, you know better that, well, that's probably contributing to the fact as long as you see that there's no other confounding going on. If the child is developing typically, but there's like this lack in dynamic communication going on, but you see what's happening in the family, that's an easy fix if the family can commit to it.
Right, right, and
Oh,
yeah, definitely.
interesting.
Yes, I feel like a few clients who are in between, they have this vision, okay, are they falling into the spectrum or so? But I feel like they're neither there, but they're not there, but they are in between because certain things which they are not exposed to. So that's
Yeah.
where in like so they don't fit. There is a lot of kids who fall into a category, I think a post-pandemic category, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
Yeah, I know what you
exposure.
mean. I definitely
Yeah.
see that. When I just described that child, you're probably thinking, "Oh, is that child autistic?" But there's nothing to me that says that the child is autistic, but we're approaching therapy the same way we would regardless. She's getting all of the supports, but she's continuing to thrive and develop language. So, yeah, it's definitely like this in between space where it's very questionable because they do have lots of characteristics that indicate maybe autism is going on. This has been such a great conversation, and I really appreciate it, Susan. If people want to find and connect with you, where can they find you?
I have my website www.italktherapies.com. So
Mhm.
that's where we are, and we just started this year, so we're like trying to expand. I have three other therapists working for me, but even with the way it is going, I'm actually expanding it to other like Instagram, and I think I'm not quite there yet, but also expanding it to even other fields like OT and PT too. So just a group of similar interest therapists
That's
expanding.
great.
Yeah. And I have my phone number in their website too.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Susan. This has been such a pleasure. I wish you all the best, and hopefully we can connect again.
Sure. Thank you for having me and good luck. And best wishes to all the fellow speech language pathologists out there.